Welcome to the Spiritist Companion Podcast. My name is Yuri Castro, and I'll be your companion on this journey where we study, reflect, and put Spiritist teachings into practice. If you like what you hear, don't forget to subscribe, to follow our pages, and to send this podcast to someone else so we may spread the seeds of light together. And today, my dear friends, I want to talk about this passage that we find in Matthew chapter 10, when Jesus said, "Restore health to the sick, raise the dead, heal lepers, and cast out demons. Give freely what you have received freely." And particularly this last part here where he's saying, give freely what you have received freely. By this idea, Jesus is prescribing that one should not charge for something that one has not paid for. What his disciples in the situation had received freely was the faculty, like he was saying, of healing the sick and casting out demons, that is, evil spirits. This gift was given to them freely by God. And it was done in such manner so they could help bring relief to those who were suffering and for the spreading of the faith as well. So that's why Jesus was telling them not to make a business of it, or an object of speculation, or a way to make a living. The codifier of Spiritism, Allan Kardec, dedicates an entire chapter to this idea of giving freely what we have received freely. This is chapter 26 of his book, The Gospel According to Spiritism, a book published all the way back in 1865. Our Master makes it very clear here that the spiritual gifts of faith and healing and divine assistance are not commodities. They are expressions of God's love granted freely and therefore must be offered in the same way. But it is so difficult to apply that nowadays in a world so strongly marked by self-interest, by exchange, and by the commercialization of everything. Allan Kardec also talks about charging for what belongs to God means to stray from its true spiritual purpose. So when we're talking about mediumship, when we're talking about inspiration, about comfort, about spiritual clarification, these things do not belong, for instance, to the medium. The medium, as the name itself, as the root of the name itself implies, is merely an instrument. In Luke, in Mark, in the Gospel of Matthew as well, we have Jesus telling them about the paid prayers, because he says that we should not make anyone pay for our prayers. And he compares that to the scribes who, under the pretext of long prayers, devour widows' houses, meaning seizing their wealth. So prayer is supposed to be an act of charity, an impulse of the heart. To be paid for a prayer addressed to God for someone else is to make oneself a paid intermediary, which we already know is not the goal. God does not sell the benefits he grants. Why then would we, who are not even the benefits distributors and cannot guarantee their obtainment, will demand payment for a request that might not even be answered? And Allan Kardec, in this chapter 26 of the Gospel According to Spiritism, he's also going to tell us how paid prayers may have another drawback. Because those who buy the prayers very often believe that they themselves do not have to pray because they have given their money to someone else for someone else to do that for them. And it's important here to make a clear distinction between honest work and spiritual commerce, because Spiritism does not condemn work or a dignified livelihood. Quite the opposite. We know that's the goal. We know that's something we must all go through living in the world we live in. What Spiritism firmly opposes is the exploitation of others' suffering, charging for spiritual favors or quote-unquote spiritual favors, selling promises, selling healings or salvation. We even find with the spirits and with Allan Kardec that those who use mediumship as a means of profit, they end up losing the assistance of good spirits because they distance themselves from humility and from the moral purpose of the gift received. True spiritual assistance is recognized by simplicity, by discretion, and by the absence of personal interest. Otherwise, my dear friends, we would be falling back into the grasp of selfishness and of pride. Giving freely, by the way, goes beyond money. It's not limited to mediumship alone. To give freely also means to offer somebody time, to offer attentive listening, to offer moral support, or to offer patience, to offer knowledge, and above all, to offer love. How many times, perhaps, have we received help or guidance or comfort in our lives and we have forgotten to do the same for others, to reciprocate? Everything we receive from God, we can even think here about life itself or our intelligence or the opportunities that come, everything invites us to share. The Spirit author Emmanuel, who wrote through the hands of Chico Xavier, he says that what we receive as a blessing must become a blessing for others. How beautiful is that? What we receive as a blessing, and we do receive a lot of those, must also become a blessing for others. Chico Xavier, the medium from Brazil himself, is one of the greatest living examples of this principle because he never charged for his psychographies. He never charged for his books or his spiritual assistance, even in the face of great material difficulties. We learn how the gospel is not a business counter. And we have to remember as well how Jesus expelled the merchants from the temple. We have this one in Mark chapter 11 and also Matthew 21. When they came to Jerusalem and Jesus was condemning the selling of holy things, and then he said, under any form whatsoever. God sells neither the divine blessing, forgiveness, nor entry into the kingdom of heaven. So humans, therefore, have no right to require payment for them. And this is a passage where we see a Jesus that is very firm with them when he's expelling them. And we can think of some practical examples for our daily lives so we can apply this teaching here. And I brought 5. Number 1 is to share knowledge without vanity. If you have learned something that can help someone else, share it. But share it without seeking superiority, without imposing, without expecting recognition. Spiritual knowledge is not a trophy, it's a tool for service. Number 2, help without expecting anything in return whatsoever. How often do we help, but secretly we expect gratitude, we expect recognition, or even repayment? To give freely is to help because it is right, not because it is advantageous. After all, even Jesus taught, let not your left hand know what your right hand is doing. And number 3, be an instrument of comfort. Sometimes the greatest act of charity is listening without judgment, welcoming without correcting, being present without offering ready-made answers. This too, my dear friends, is giving freely. Number 4, use your talents for good. Yes, talents. Do you sing? Are you good at teaching? Are you good at organizing? Do you listen well? Do you have a lot of patience? We all have talents. The question is, How are we placing them at the service of good? How are we giving those talents to others? And number 5, avoid turning relationships into transactions. Not everything should be an exchange. Not everything should have a price. Not everything should bring advantage, especially when we're talking about relationships. Some gestures should exist solely out of love. Currently, we live in a society that values how much does it cost and what do I gain from this? But the gospel, my dear friends, proposes another logic, the logic of giving, the logic of service, the logic of selfless love. This posture can help transform not only those who receive, but those who give. Allan Kardec reminds us in the Gospel according to Spiritism, chapter 26, how the reward for freely doing good is not material. And we can think about how this can manifest as peace of conscience, spiritual growth, harmony with good spirits, even inner balance. To give freely is to trust that God takes care of the rest. My dear friends, everything we receive from God, our life, opportunities, gifts, support, come to us without charge. So may we serve without self-interest, help without demanding, love without conditions, and transform our small actions into instruments of the greater good. Thank you once again for being with me in this podcast. It is always such a blessing to be here, to be able to give freely what I have received and to give with so much love. If you enjoy what you heard, please subscribe, please follow our pages, and also please share this podcast with someone else so we may spread the seeds of light together. I'll see you next Monday, and until then, stay in peace, walk with faith, and continue giving freely what God has already given you.